Welcome back here today, as mentioned, with Kathy Pope from Feeding the Gulf Coast and James Guy from Shepherd's Gate Church. Kathy, we want, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like we want to restart that backpack program here in Washington County. Mm-hmm. That's probably one of the end results that we'd like to see from you visiting us here, speaking. Obviously, you're trying to drum up support in general for the overall program. Talk about that backpack program. And James already told us it would take roughly well under $10,000 a year to satisfy those needs. You're going to speak to our Kiwanis Club here in just a little bit for lunch today. What will be your message to them, and how will you try to engage them? And more importantly, how can they, as an entity, embrace that program and fulfill what it is that you're looking to do?
Well, I think one of the biggest messages is that I just want to be a tool to educate your community, Washington County, about hunger in your county, and that we're here to help and support. That's what we do, and we do a very good job of it. I have a staff of 58 that runs all 3 states, and my staff is very good at what they do. We have great inventory because we are able to purchase in bulk. So really, you couldn't go to Walmart and say, well, I'll buy canned goods for you. I can do it 5 times more than you can provide. Right. So I know that people want to give canned goods, and all of that is good. But we just have the ability, because of the way we're structured, to purchase so much more. So we're able to purchase healthy items for the backpack. You know, maybe every single item isn't healthy, but we have a dietitian on staff, and that's why it's great to work through us, and I think James would probably agree. Yeah. We do a very good job of it. We make sure that we have what we should have in the backpack. We can order the quantities that need to be ordered. We can have it delivered, to some entity that wants to be the sponsor. So I think we do a very good job. We just need for the community to get on board, to understand that we have children in this community that are going home hungry on Friday, and they're coming back hungry. I was in Bay County recently, and I visited with one of our backpack sponsors in Panama City. And we even think for Panama City, I mean, that's where I hung out when I was in college, in high school. And, but they're struggling. Some of their children are struggling. Yeah. These are people who are working in the hospitality industry. And winter's tough, there are no tourists there. So, she is really, the lady that handles it, Janet, is really doing a great job with their backpack program. And they work through us, and we deliver, all of this food to her, and then she has volunteers that will separate it and put it in the backpacks and get it to the schools. And she told me recently when I visited with her, she said, Kathy, I visited with one of the teachers, because they know the teachers and counselors very well. Because
and the teachers know best which children are.
They're the ones telling us, these are the children in my class that I know need help. But she had Janet, the sponsor, had a teacher tell her recently that because they deliver the backpacks on Thursday for the teachers to, very, very quietly put it in the children's bag to go home on Friday. Yes. And a little girl comes to the teacher and says, I know you got the backpacks in today. It's a Thursday. She said, can I have mine today? And she said, well, honey, we're going to give them out tomorrow. And she said, but I'm not going to have anything to eat tonight. You're like, wow. That's powerful. And this is what's happening in our communities, and we need to be aware of it.
What comes to mind immediately is that the privacy issues, the sensitivity. That little girl doesn't care who knows she's hungry at that age, she's hungry. But if she was 30 years old, she would have more of a tendency not to want people to know.
Sure.
Unfortunately, her parents are 20s and 30s, and so they are sensitive to that. Do we find that many people are going hungry and simply not letting people know? I can't help but think, as a second part to that question, it also causes crime. They're in there, they're shoplifting, they're stealing something to pawn to make some money so that they can feed their family. You know what? At the end of the day, if somebody steals to feed their family, I'm hard pressed to be real angry with them. What I'm angry with is us for not recognizing the problem. Right. Exactly. My original question, though, there is a confidentiality issue, there is a privacy issue. If nothing else, it's just good taste or poor taste not to.
Sure.
How do you circumvent that? And a second part of that is that educational process. In many cases, the way I understand it, we're actually telling these kids to hide it when they get home so that it can't be taken away from them.
Well, and that's really the sad thing to me is we were talking here about
Yes.
serving the elementary schools. Well, I mean, the middle schools need it. High schools need it. We want to make sure that we're just teaching the children, because some of them will be bullied for their backpack. I mean, that's just a reality that we hate to face, but it's true. So, yes, there's a need in the elementary school, but there's a need in the middle school too. So we want to start small,
Yes.
but I really can see that it can grow. But privacy is an issue. So I think the teachers and counselors are very sensitive to that,
Yes.
to just kind of stick it in the backpack. And one of the things that Janet in Panama City does is she packs it in black bags and you can't see through it. I really like that. And that's the first one that I've seen. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how we could make it more uniform that way, because right now they're in like grocery bags, like Walmart, those plastic bags that we have at the grocery store. And but we do need to be very sensitive to the children that we're helping.
You can sometimes cause as many problems as you solve. For instance, I hadn't even thought the bullying part of it. I thought in terms of siblings or parents, even unfortunately in the times in which we live, taking that food away. But many times it probably doesn't make it off the school grounds because of that bully.
Right, it's possible.
And again, the confidentiality and the sensitivity issue. I like the black bags. James, when we had the program here in Washington County before, what did we do as part of that educational piece or component to ensure, number one, from an educational point of view, that teachers were as sensitive as they should be, and then more importantly, that the child was, for lack of a better term, educated in how to make sure that they kept that food with them until the Monday when they were back to school?
Great question. The teachers, they do the initial assessment by the children that they get. They give the information to the guidance counselor who's trained to do this. And then the guidance counselor, he does everything he needs to do to verify, these kids need food. The way I did it, when we had one from an elementary school, we would say, how many brothers and sisters do you have? If the elementary school child is hungry, then the other one or two or three are hungry also. We actually supplied it for the siblings also, per the guidance counselor. And we try to do it in ways where the parents, whether they're on drugs or whatever, and it's just common, they take the food back, you give them food. Anytime we give food out, we X out the barcode so they can't take it back and swap it for cigarettes or beer or whatever. And this is food that they wouldn't take back to Walmart, And so we try to be very sensitive to that. And the guidance counselors here, they are great at that. But I've actually had parents bring the food back to me, to the school, says, I know my kids are hungry, but I don't want your food. And you say, oh man, I can't believe. So we have to be sensitive. I mean, I don't have the right to go into a private house and make them, but we try to actually get the permission of the parents to give this food to them through the guidance counselor before we ever send it.
So wouldn't a key component also be an educational effort to educate those parents that, hey, we're not giving you charity here. We're trying to help your child
That's right.
achieve what he's capable of in the school. More importantly, help you until you don't need that help. And so often we give people a handout instead of a hand up. And that's why we're not going to get into the politics of it, but we have the problems that we do.
Right.
You can't be mad at somebody who's third and fourth generation entitlement getting a check every month because they don't know any different.
Right.
It's like being mad at a dog for barking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that those children shouldn't be fed. It's not their fault.
That's right.
It's not their fault. They didn't choose their
That's
family.
correct.
They didn't choose their circumstances.
That's correct.
And the point that you made, Paul, about the generation, and basically what we have is a poverty problem. A lot, in a large extent, right?
Yes.
I mean, whether you're a senior and you're trying to pay for your medicine and your electric bills, and you're on a fixed income. I mean, what are you supposed to do? It's not like you're going to go get a job.
Sure.
You're 80 years old, or you're a child. You're in this family. What do? You just need some help. But if we tie that to education, a large part of the reason people are in poverty is lack of education.
Absolutely.
And so we as a society, we understand the importance of education and appreciate it very much. But what is that child going to do if he's hungry? So to me, we need to tie nutritious food in quantities that can sustain us with our education. That's how you get people moving from getting that handout, right? You keep moving them through. And I think nutritious food is a large part of it.
Your effort, not being disparaging at all, is a Band-Aid, and it's getting people by. Our biggest problem is education from a global sense,
Right.
educating
Yes.
people. I will inject one political comment, and I think that we're seeing some changes now in our top levels of government, and I think that we're going to see some positive changes. I think there's heartburn to come because of it, because we're all going to have to give a little. We're living in a false society right now. If we're going that far into debt every year, then something's not right. And the only thing wrong with socialism is you're going to run out of other people's money eventually. And that's what and realistically,
Yes.
that's what's happening.
Yeah.
I agree that we can't do away with Obamacare. If it weren't for affordable health care, I wouldn't have had my shoulder fixed last year. I get that. But I'm going to have some pain. I'm going to have to suffer a little bit to make the changes that's necessary. Again, not getting into the politics, but we are trying to fix something today, and it's a finger in the dike. From your perspective, it's a great segue into probably my last question for you, and that's, what is our overall effort here? Philosophically, your organization has a mission statement, and I think without hearing it, I got a pretty fair idea of what it is. But philosophically, your entire organization must embrace a bigger concept. And you talk about Adam Putnam, our Commissioner of Agriculture here, working with that program. Well, that tells me you've got state buy-in, and then certainly there's a federal buy-in. What's the answer? What's the long-term answer? Being a Pollyanna, being totally unrealistic, where can we go from here to make things better so that in 20 years, maybe 10 years even, you and your job will not be necessary?
That would be a great thing if people were not struggling with hunger every day. I think, and yes, my organization, our mission is just to feed people who are hungry now. Our mission is not to solve the poverty problem, or not to see that kids graduate high school. I would love it, but that's not...
Different agency.
Yeah.
Other people do it, which is great, and we send people to other nonprofits, to help solve some other issues that they have in their family. But we want to see that people are fed now. And yes, help them get out of that. A lot of people that we see are temporarily struggling. Again, they've lost their job, their car broke down, they've had some medical issue. So some of those people are moving on through. But the children and the elderly are really not able to leave us now. So I do think the education is a large part of it. Let's feed our children so that when they come to school, they can study and focus and do well. And that sets them on a path for success much more than if we just let them go hungry. And so I think that's a bigger picture. And in that way, I think we do help with a bigger picture.
And that was sort of where I was coming back to, and you said it exactly. Interestingly, your finger in the dike effort, carried on long enough, is actually ultimately going to solve that entire problem, because you are turning out educated people. Kathy, certainly we didn't have the time to talk about every single nut and bolt in your program. If somebody wants to find out, you have a website?
Yes, we're feedingthegulfcoast.org. And we do a lot of programs, actually. We are into nutrition education. We do Cooking Matters classes for kids. So we want to teach them about where your food comes from. And this is healthy food, and let them taste things that they've, not tasted. Spaghetti squash, what would I do with that? It's actually fabulous with marinara sauce on it. So we do that. We have community gardens that we do. So we're growing fruits, and we're growing a lot of vegetables and getting those out in the community. We glean from farmers' fields. When they say, "Okay, we're done," then we get volunteers to come and gather those fruits and vegetables. We do summer feeding programs, after-school programs. So we have child nutrition programs that we do. Coming from a Meals on Wheels program and really having a heart for the seniors, we're kind of ramping. I told my staff, I said, I know y'all don't want me to discuss one more program because we do a lot, but I really think the need is huge out there for seniors as well. So I'm kind of looking into what can we do to get more food out to seniors specifically, because thinking about high blood pressure, diabetes, they need certain foods in a food box per se. If you were going to do a senior food box, like I said, we have a nutritionist on staff. So I just feel like we do really good at what we do, and I would love for Washington County to kind of get on board to support that so that we can get more food into the county, whether it's through mobile pantry, backpack program for schools. I'd love for the companies that you have here to want to give to their community. And I just can't think of anything more basic than let's provide food for those who are hungry.
What's interesting, and was a shock to me, is that our local food pantries, when they gave out raw foods, they gave out sweet potatoes or yams or turnips, people gave them back. They didn't know what to do with them. So we have a much larger issue there. Some of the best foods, some of the worst foods are the processed foods. Lots of sodium, and if you already have pre-existing health conditions, the last thing an older person needs is a box of chips.
Right.
Where that potato or cauliflower is going to be a much better choice. And in many cases, they don't know how to prepare. So there is a much bigger educational effort there. James, you mentioned your next food giveaway. Go ahead, I'll give you a chance to plug that one again.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it's here. Last year at the Methodist Church, we had it basically the same time. And we gave out food to, I think, 156 families. You were talking about that. We had 2,000 pounds of red cabbage. Half of the people came to me and said, how do you cook red cabbage? I said, the exact same way you cook green cabbage. You know, they didn't know. And but we have one here at the Methodist Church at 9 a.m. on April the 8th, this Saturday before Easter. You know, and traditionally we do one in Live Oak during August, and we're doing one in Ebro. But all they have to do is call me at 850-258-5854, and I have a list of every food giveaway in the county this year.
Kathy, thanks for taking the time. I know it's your job, but it's still, and maybe somewhat outside your comfort zone, not personally, but because you are new to the program. Please consider coming back on a semi-irregular basis.
I'd love to.
I think it's important. We've sort of whet people's appetite. We've talked about the problem. We've talked about the potential solutions. I'd really love to have you come back. Number one, talk about your results in 6-8 months down the road here in Washington County. But more importantly, you talked about new programs. Consider coming back and talking about that. I don't know that we can knock people in the head often enough and make them aware of this program, to ever suit me, certainly, or to solve the problem. So again, thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
James, as always,
thank
you so much. We're going to make a point of trying to get by your food giveaway. Probably no more compelling a subject to talk about, no more compelling a problem. More importantly, look around at 10 or 20 of your friends, and chances are there's going to be somebody in that group that goes to bed or goes home on Friday if they're a child, and with the prospect of being hungry on the weekend. Our pride, our sense of privacy so often keeps us from espousing those needs to others, and I think some of the churches maybe do a good job. James mentioned the guidance counselors having sometimes training to be able to spot that kind of stuff. We don't live in the nirvana that we think we do, and all around us are problems, all around us are things that you can help to solve. One of the things that we like to use this show for is to show out, to be able to demonstrate some of the more compelling problems. Today, Kathy Pope from Feeding the Gulf Coast pointed out just exactly that. She's going to be back soon. I'm going to hold her to that, probably going to pester her starting in a couple months from now and seeing if we can't get her back. Give you an update on how well she's done. We'll be right back.